everybody, and welcome to episode 89 of On the Road with AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians. My name is Jodi, and I'm the editor-in-chief of AutoTrader.
And my name is Dan Alika, and I am AutoTrader's road test editor.
On the road. So,
Yes.
as a kind of follow-up to our previous episode,
Yes.
today we're going to be talking about if we are going backwards in our goals to be more sustainable in terms of our transportation choices. As we talked about on the last episode, the EV mandates have kind of been delayed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about what's going to happen. There's just a lot of uncertainty right now. But what kind of spurred this with our editorial team is the news that Dodge has brought back the Hemi V8.
Yeah.
Which was an interesting choice because honestly, these days, this rarely happens.
Yeah. So
Let's give a bit of background.
a bit of background would be that, guys, even if you're not closely following this stuff, big engines burn more gas and spew more emissions than smaller ones, right? And it's why automakers, including, let's say, Ford, for example, years ago added what's now known as the EcoBoost family of engines to its lineup. The F-150, I remember when it happened, 3.5-liter twin turbocharged V6. That was the first EcoBoost that we had in North America. It was a little controversial because, of course, you think of, does it have what it takes to serve in a pickup truck? That's always the first question,
Capability.
right? Ford, yes, there have been problems with some of the EcoBoosts over the years and whatever because it's introduced other ones. I think there's a 2.7-liter V6 as well, but it's also proven that it can do high output versions. The F-150 Raptor has a twin turbocharged EcoBoost engine now. It's very possible to build these high output, strong, reliable, capable engines. Mm-hmm. But Ford started that, a good dozen years ago. Dodge and now Ram, as it's been renamed, really took the slow route.
They know their customers, right?
Yes.
So they announced last year that it would phase out the Hemi V8 due to new emission laws and the industry's move towards electrification and efficiency. Okay, great. We can get on board with that.
Yes.
This Hemi V8 was replaced with a twin turbo Hurricane inline 6 engine.
Yes. Now, hold on. I just want to pause there. In terms of engines of all shapes and sizes, whether you call it an inline 6, a straight 6, whatever, it is a 6-cylinder engine that the pistons run up and down, and it is mounted inversely. So it runs, from tip to tail. It's
right.
Pointing at the cabin from the front bumper. It is the single smoothest engine on the market, whether it's made by Audi, BMW, GM, Ford, Stellantis. It doesn't matter who makes it because it's inherently balanced. Because the pistons, the way with the firing order means that there's no kind of sway. You don't feel it moving. It's buttery smooth. That's what makes a straight 6 so damn good.
Yeah, so in a V8, when you floor it, there's a lot of side-to-side movement.
That's the whole thing with whether it's the Hemi or others. When you just tap the throttle, if you're sitting at a light in neutral, the engine rocks on the engine mounts, and you can kind of feel the whole vehicle shake. But with a straight 6, you don't get that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and so this Hurricane inline 6, other than it being smoother and more balanced, it was also supposed to be more fuel efficient than the V8, and it was also more powerful than the V8.
Yes.
So they had two different versions. Like you said, there is a standard output and a high output version of this inline 6 engine. The standard output one had 420 horsepower and 469 pound-feet of torque. The high output one had 540 horsepower and 521 pound-feet of torque, whereas the Hemi V8 only had 395 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. So the downside to the inline 6 engine is that it does require premium 91 octane fuel, whereas the V8 could run on regular octane.
Okay, fine.
Right? But again, it's more efficient. So that it really had that going for it. So when you went on the first drive event for the new inline six Ram 1500, and you had a lot of great things to say about it.
Absolutely.
Right? So just walk us through like why were you so impressed with that engine, and why didn't you miss the V8?
Again, it's so smooth, right? That's the number one. And then it's so powerful. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate a V8. I've owned V8 powered vehicles in the past, but the way that, whether it's turbocharged, twin turbocharged, it doesn't matter. The way that can kind of backfill what is missing in a naturally aspirated engine in terms of torque, especially at the low end. It's great for towing. It's great for hauling. Really a super, super fantastic engine. Yes, it's unproven, but that I think leads into your next point, because that video that I did was just inundated with negativity.
And that blew my mind, because by all measures, the inline six engine was better than the V8. But a lot of the comments on that video were calling this a woke engine. You can take my V8, you can pry it out of my dead hands. Like, you can't tell me what kind of engine I should buy. Like, people were so upset about this engine. And like, guys, this is an internal combustion, gas-powered, 6-cylinder engine. Like, this isn't some hybrid or some electric vehicle, right? And they were still up in arms about it.
It's very odd. And, Jodi and I we were shocked, and then we sort of joked about it at the time. And now watching Stellantis walk this back and quite honestly throw its former CEO under the bus.
Way under the bus. Just the wording that they used when they came out with the V8 again, it was very choice words. So can I just share with you what they said? Okay. So they put out a press release. The Ram CEO Tim Kuniskis said they admitted that the company made a mistake in discontinuing it for the 2025 model year. In quotes, he said, Ram screwed up when we dropped the Hemi. He said bringing back the V8 was a direct result of consumer input. Consumer input. We're expanding the freedom of choice in powertrain for our customers. At the end of each month, we count sales to customers, not statisticians, not ideologues. Data be damned. We raise our flag and let the Hemi ring free again. Like, what the heck is that language?
I would be so mortified to say anything like that, let alone just be like, yeah, this is going to be our rally cry. To me, it just has the stinging sound of a dog whistle.
I was going to say everything in this press release sounded like a dog whistle to me. And I was like, can you imagine if Mary Barra stood up in front of everyone, the shareholders, data be damned. That's just weird, right?
To me, it's like caving to pressure. Now, here's the thing. Do I think that Ram or Stellantis more generally screwed up by dropping the Hemi? Yeah. I mean, so one of our contributors, Matthew Guy, his intro to his first drive of this, resurrected Hemi-powered Ram 1500, he went into this the whole song and dance about it, that it's like, Ram forced its buyers to quit cold turkey, and I thought that was a really funny way to put it. But it's true, because if you look at Ford or if you look at GM, both of them introduced. For GM, there's even I remember when a 4-cylinder version of the Silverado hit the market. It was controversial, but it still had the 5.3 and the 6.4. So you were not just forced into it. That's what Ford did by effectively pioneering this idea of smaller displacement, but, turbocharged for trucks. Whereas with Stellantis and Ram, they just waited as long as they could and then went, okay, now it's time to rip the Band-Aid off. And that's why it had this negative reaction. To cave so quickly and to frame it as, yes, they're listening to their customers, but more importantly, what Kuniskis isn't saying is that they're watching their sales plummet and they're reacting to that.
Yeah.
It's really, to me, kind of shameful. And also, I don't care. You can blame whoever you want. There are lots of execs that worked at the company 3, 4, 5 years ago, 10 years ago that are still there today. They could have done this phased approach just like Ford did with the EcoBoost. I'm telling you right now, Ford sells way more V6 powered F-150s than it does V8 powered F-150s because it phased it in. People saw
Got used to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to hold on to the Hemi for dear life with, there was a V6 version available as well, but to not make a more appealing V6 version or straight six version, to just go, no, if you want the good one, you got to get the Hemi, and then go, okay, the Hemi's not around anymore. It triggered people the same way we're seeing people react to EVs.
Yes.
And instead of being steadfast in the commitment, literally caved within like a year.
Yeah. But to me, it's like, how can they use such language when they just came out with an EV-powered Dodge Charger,
Yeah.
right? And say these things. But also, they're like, oh, we're doing this for our customers and our fans. But they're also going to charge you extra to get that V8 now. So you're like, you can have this V8, but you're going to have to pay up for it.
Yeah.
So really, how is that for the consumers?
Exactly. It's very odd, and it is concerning because it makes me worry who else is going to play the wait and see approach, see how Ram does with this strategy, and then do something similar. Personally, if I were a betting man, Ford is not going to follow suit. GM even, I don't see it, abandoning its smaller displacement, turbocharged versions of its pickup trucks.
They also have many more options, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think Stellantis in general, and especially in North America, is kind of floundering right now. And this episode isn't just about Stellantis, but I mean, this decision is what triggered it. And there's more to the decision, obviously, than we can talk about before moving on to the next whoever that might be. But it's like Jeep used to be Stellantis's, or FCA's cash cow. That's not so much the case anymore. And when you look at the other brands in its portfolio, they have absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah.
Chrysler,
they have one vehicle,
Yeah.
which is a minivan.
Yeah.
Not exactly one that everyone's lining up for.
No, Dodge.
Fiat.
Yeah. And then Dodge has, aside from the Challenger, right, which is now there is a straight six powered version of the Challenger. And that was always the plan, was to have the entirely electric version and then same platform, same body, same everything, but no battery pack, no electric motors. And this same Hurricane straight six, go figure, right? This same high output engine that's perfectly suited for service in a muscle car, but it's not good enough for a pickup truck. But anyways, the entire portfolio is struggling. No product support, outdated vehicles, right? Paused development. We've now seen the Cherokee finally, but that took forever. There's supposed to be a new Compass on its way. Those should be hot sellers.
Yep.
And the company can't even get it together and deliver new generations of those vehicles. So I think this is a panicked move. It's very reactionary, but just like we saw it drag out the death of the Charger and Challenger,
With all those last call models.
We said this at the time, how many last calls can there be? I don't know, guys. Listen, I don't go to the bar a lot. I'm not 19 anymore, but I remember last call being last call.
There was only one.
They didn't go, this is pre-last call, and then we're going to have last call, but then we're going to have last call. There were like 6 different versions of the last call. They just milked that for every penny, and notice how the price went up and up and up. A car that used to cost, I don't know, 70 grand, 75 grand was suddenly like $140,000 for this like outdated
10-year-old platform.
Sure, it sounds good and whatever, but it was like they just same thing. They like squeezed every last drop out of that. And now we're seeing kind of a similar path with this where it's like, no, we're bringing it back. Sales are down. We've got to do it. But it's like, no, you should have been more proactive in your approach. You should have sold the Hurricane version alongside the Hemi version, made it the higher output one, made it the version that you put in the TRX or whatever it is, the RHO, whatever the performance version that replaced the TRX, where it's like, show your fans, these people you apparently care so much about, what that engine is capable of so that they go, oh, no, this is a viable replacement.
Yeah, and so I think the fans were the reasons why they said they were so upset about the V8 being discontinued. It was like, oh, but the inline six is a junk engine. It's not reliable, and I miss the sound. I just love a V8 sound. I'm like, get over it, bro.
It's also like, I don't know.
It's not a good enough reason.
To me, it seems like decision making for your customers who also have like survival shelters. Like, you know what I mean? It's like very weird to be like, we better make this decision for the people. Whatever you want to say about it, it's like the vocal minority, right? The people who are angriest about it. The problem is though, truck makers have turned the market into this crazy revolving door where people are constantly rolling negative equity and buying a new truck just because it's new and whatever. So it's like they're so dependent on getting new trucks out the door that they're really taking the bait on. If we reacted to every, kind of like negative, I hate to politicize it, but we all know the kind of people that are angriest about this, right? And if we, if everyone capitulated to every one of their demands and whims, like we're going down across the board.
Yeah, real fast.
So, but it does make me worried because, you could say that it's similar to like a Volvo pausing or delaying its planned shift to entirely ZEV vehicles, zero emission vehicles. But the point is that those are still going to represent the vast majority, and all of them are hybridized. Now, I am a huge, I talked about it on the last episode. Hybrids alone, conventional hybrids, are not good enough. And I think a lot of brands hide behind hybridization, including Stellantis before this, because now that it's back, it also has this e-torque technology,
right, which
is like such a joke of a hybridization.
I would classify that as a mild hybrid.
Absolutely it is. But it's like, Toyota is the same way, where they're like, oh, our electrified lineup. And it's like, listen, you're either selling zero emission vehicles or you're not. Okay. So, Volvo is the same way, where it's going to continue selling for the V60 or the XC60. It's called the B5, I think, and that's like the 4-cylinder turbocharged version that's a mild hybrid.
Okay.
So now they're like, oh, well, they're electrified powertrains, and it's like, that's not an electrified powertrain. That's just it's like me putting on a football jersey and being like, I'm a football player. Like, no, okay, you're not. It's that same idea. It's like just because you got the shirt, just because you've got a little jolt of electrification, it cannot run. To me, the characterization should be, can it run on nothing but electrons? If the answer is yes, then it is considered a hybrid. If it's not, it's considered a mild hybrid, and categorizing them as hybridized vehicles to me is a little bit disingenuous.
I mean, it seems a little bit like greenwashing. Yeah.
But Sebastian Bell, our associate editor, had a good point about this, right? Because I said, well, listen, Toyota at least is making strides in the sense that the RAV4, the 2026 RAV4, whatever generation it is now, like the 8th, that's about to hit the market, it's hybrid only now. There's no more gas only version of it. You can either buy a conventional hybrid or a plug-in hybrid. The Camry is hybrid only.
A lot of their lineup is going in that direction.
It's moving that way. So I said, like, that to me, it's still not good enough, but it's better than the alternative. Sebastian pointed out, that Toyota in the U.S. has spent a lot of money lobbying the federal government, and this goes back years and years, to to fight against battery electric vehicle production. Toyota has notoriously not been a big EV maker.
They've openly criticized them. Their chairman has been like, he's said some very choice words about EVs.
Now, they've also kind of seen the error of their ways. I'm talking about, the execs and all the bigwigs over there. And now they're sort of accelerating Toyota's plans for electrification. However, there's more to the story in terms of, geopolitics involved, right? Japan is a very small island nation, right? Not very rich in natural resources. It's, one of its closest neighbors happens to be one that Japan and a lot of countries have a contentious relationship with, and that's China. So it's like relying on a country like China for rare earths and all the materials that it needs to make batteries, I think has led brands like Toyota, like Nissan, like Honda to be a little bit apprehensive in their approach to electrification. And that's why hybrids were the, less bad alternative.
Right.
And that's why, you're seeing rumors about them wanting to, they're now lobbying for the Canadian federal government and the Ontario government to open access to the Ring of Fire in Northern Ontario because it's this very resource-rich area. And you're seeing investment. Volkswagen, for example, has invested in a massive battery plant in Southern Ontario because it's a more stable partner geopolitically to source your materials from. And that's why, LG is involved with a battery plant in Southern Ontario with Stellantis because it's an appealing partner to work with, right? Less volatility there. So I think as much as I agree with Sebastian and I have said from the start, hybrids aren't good enough, but there is more to it. Yes, that doesn't excuse the lobbying and the fighting back against, government, because this is one of those areas. I'm not two things. I'm not extreme in either way. So I'm not this Freeman on the land anarchist that rejects government. And I also don't promote, that the government should control everything we do. However, it's a little bit like we're the kids and the government is the parents. And sometimes when your parents tell you that you can't have another, glass of pop or more candy or whatever, right? Cereal for dinner. There's a reason they're telling you that. And sometimes you have to listen.
Right. Because it's in your best interest.
Exactly. And this to me is one of those areas where I think, for lobbyists to be pushing back against government, it's only because it's not in their best interest.
For sure.
But for the world, the reality is, this is globalization, not in an economical or political way. Climate-wise, everybody that says, that age-old excuse of why should we have to do this because China's polluting, blah, and it's well, listen, man. I mean, first of all, there's a lot to get into there, but more fundamentally, the air in China and the air in Canada, it's the same. Okay, the environment isn't isolated. There aren't glass walls between us. So the reality is, even if it's begrudgingly, you do have to kind of make up for what your neighbors are doing if you want to keep enjoying the planet the way you want to enjoy it, right? But we've all agreed, there have been so many, meetings of governments and whatever. The Kyoto Protocol was supposed to be this big thing, and, all of these conventions that have been no, we need to push for this, the Paris Climate Accord, all of this stuff, and then it gets walked back and follow the money, right? You have these corporations, including automakers, that are saying, no, let's try this a different way. But it's the government is ultimately, beholden to its citizens. And when they're telling us, this is why we're doing this, we just need to listen, and we don't need to be shaking our fists and being angry about stuff like the discontinuation of such an inconsequential product as a V8 engine just because it sounds good.
Yeah, I think that whole thing, as we discovered, is more of an ideological battle than an actual practical one, which is part of the problem with all this. I really don't think climate change is one of those issues that should have been politicized and continues to be politicized.
It's like the idea that for a long time, it was called global warming.
Right.
And then, detractors said, oh,
I'm seeing record snow.
yeah. Oh, you tell me why. So now it's like we've shifted to climate change, but it's like a little bit too late because people still get hung up on that original thing. So it's like, listen, guys like Al Gore, right, really popularized, attention to climate change. But because he was a politician, even that politicized it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is one of those situations where, it is a two-sided thing, right? When you look at your fellow human as a rival, whatever you want to call it, it's hard to like break down those walls. So it's like you see a guy like Al Gore and go, I don't agree with him because he's a lib, So it's like his cause now becomes a cause that you disagree with. I did read an interesting thing recently. It was like an interview that Ryan Reynolds, good Canadian, had done during TIFF. And somebody asked him like what it's like as a, because he's a very proud Canadian. He doesn't shy away from the fact that he, grew up in BC. And somebody asked him like what it's like being a Canadian working in Hollywood right now. And it was a typical Ryan Reynolds eloquent, disarming answer. And he was talking about how he worked on a production with somebody who was like pretty MAGA and said like, hey, let's like trade phones for a second and see each other's algorithms to check out kind of like what you're being served on social media versus what I'm being served. And, I thought about that as like a very, such a diplomatic approach to disagreement. And climate is one of those things, right? Where if you go to a place like I did in northern Quebec, myself, Kyle Patrick, and Mark Richardson, two other Canadian auto journalists, and Jens Meiners, a German auto journalist, came to Canada, and the four of us took a road trip up to northern Quebec. I'm talking like, the shores of James Bay, and a place that is, very much disconnected from the city, a place that you would expect more kind of let's say like climate change denialism and like, but it was the polar opposite where we were sitting down having conversations with people and like the number of times, and this wasn't some like coordinated thing where somebody said, oh, you're going to interview these people. These were random people.
Just locals who live there.
And all of them that were like, telling us about what it's usually like watching the caribou migration and them saying like, their migratory patterns have shifted hundreds of kilometers. This is climate. All of them were like, this is a result of climate change. The ice on James Bay. They're like, this is a result of climate change. So it's like, people that you might have disagreements with on fundamental issues, when you can find that. So I look at something like hunting, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but if you're somebody who might be more like small c conservative than me, it might be more that lifestyle, right? Of hunting and outdoors and whatever. It's like if we can find that common ground to be like, I see the impact that climate change is having on emissions and what the auto industry is doing to contribute to that negatively. And if we can find something like hunting to be like, look, this is how it's impacting something that you love.
We can all win, right? By moving forward, there's a benefit to literally all of us.
But this is not the answer. Resurrecting the Hemi and all of this kind of silly stuff is just not the way forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. Before our Ask an Expert, here's a message from your friends at AutoTrader. We at Own the Road love making car stuff simple for Canadians, and the AutoTrader app does the exact same thing. Sign up for price drop notifications, find out how much your car is worth, get an instant cash offer from a vetted dealership, get all your expert advice, and more. Download the AutoTrader app today. Haha, just kidding. We don't have an Ask an Expert today. But if you would
Thanks.
like to send us a question, you can email us at expert@trader.ca. And I would like to take this extra couple of seconds to remind you all to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know, Dan and I work so hard to bring you guys amazing car reviews and other interesting stuff. So it'd mean a lot to us if you subscribed.
And also, you know, just I know the whole expert@trader.ca email that we always plug about emailing with questions for Ask an Expert and for the podcast. But even more generally, you know, if you have questions, concerns, suggestions about what we can do, content that might, you know, that you think kind of fills a void, if you have questions that you want answered that aren't just a quick response on the podcast.
Yeah.
We're always happy to explore that with articles. I mean, we've done it with car shopping tips in terms of leasing and financing and all that
Yeah, or if
stuff.
there's an episode topic that you would like to see us discuss at length, like that, I welcome that. Like, send it to us.
Absolutely. So yeah, we are all ears and always open to suggestions and feedback.
That ends this episode. Thank you all so much for joining us. Drive safe, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.